And so my dad was like, look, if we're going to do this, you need to market yourself. And so he kind of taught me some of the social media stuff. And that was kind of before a lot of the other jet skiers were doing it. And so I couldn't just be myself because that wasn't something people would remember. So we came up with Jet Girls Racing. And at that time, my little sister was racing too. And as it kind of grew and developed, I started a media business out of it. And I ended up doing the trademark, and I'm really proud of it. So, yes, technically the original Jet Girl.
That is awesome. That's actually rad. I've got one or two trademarks, and people, it's actually an interesting process to get one. People think it's easy. It's actually not. So when I saw that, I was like, I figured it was real, but I was like, I got to ask you. Like, that's
There are a lot of people that will just like throw a trademark out there, but I actually do have a trademark on Jet Girl, and then I also have. I started a media business when I was younger, where I was, doing articles and photography and things for different jet ski and dirt bike magazines. So I also have a trademark on my media brand, which is Motor Action Media. So I had those trademarks when I was like 17, and that was such a flex for me. Most of the kids my age didn't get it, but I thought that was so cool, and I worked really hard to build those brands, and I'm super proud of them.
That's rad. That's awesome. That's good to know.
Thanks.
So let's go back to the beginning. Obviously, I know, what are you, like a 9-time world champion? What,
Hang on. I'm a 9-time national champion, but I
national
am very proud of my world title. It was very
world.
hard earned. But yeah, we can go back to the beginning.
Yeah, let's go back to the beginning. I want to know how you actually got started jet skiing. I mean, you're there's actually a few people. I know Gomez was another one, but there's some people, because they're so passionate about jet skis, they just moved to Lake Havasu because, like, I mean, it's probably the only place that I know of. I'm sure there's some spots in Florida that actually have, you know what I mean, stuff in the water where you can go and run the buoys and things like that. But I'm like, there's very few places that just like embrace jet skis. So I mean, like, that was a big move for you. It had to have been a big move to Havasu.
Yeah. If we take it all the way back to the beginning, I was really fortunate to grow up with a dad that was just an absolute gearhead. To this day, they still tell me that, like, when I was a baby, they would put on, CDU had an instructional VHS on how to operate your sit down watercraft. And if I was fussy, wouldn't go to sleep, they'd pop that bad boy in the VHS and I was out. TKO, I'd fall asleep, no problem. So I was riding sit downs with my parents, literally like a year old, possibly younger. As I had the jet ski noises like down, I could make all of those sounds before I could talk. So I've been around watercraft ever since I was a baby. I've been fortunate. My family had a lake home at the Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri. So that was my home base, was Lake of the Ozarks, Missouri, which I don't know if you know much about that lake, but it is literally one of the roughest lakes in the country because of these big boats. So I grew up just getting hammered by like huge rollers, and it was just like a bathtub. But that's where I learned how to ride. Around the time that I was about 14, 15, my dad bought us our own stand-ups, my little sister and I was helping him build the motors. I had a 440 that was hot pink with bubbles and flowers on it. And that was the first ski that I worked on. It never quite ran right. It had these weird gremlins that we just never figured out. But that was the first ski that I ever rode by myself. And then around the time I turned 16, there was a local race in Kansas City. My dad took us down there because he had grown up watching, the legends on, ESPN in the 90s. He was watching Jeff Jacobs and Christy Carlson. So he was a diehard through and through. But he didn't ever want to force anything on us. So he took us down there. My little sister and I are watching, and they had a junior 10 to 12 class. And we were watching these kids that were like 3 feet tall. And my sister and I, of course, are like, we can do that. Like, we can take these kids. This is no thing. So dad, of course, was like, all right, we're in, like all in. He goes out and buys a 750 SXI Pro and a 750 SX, because those, at the time, we were under the impression that those would be good skis to start racing on. We showed up to our first race in Wichita, Kansas, and we just got humbled like so hard by the experience. I remember I was like ready. At my first race, I showed up in motocross gear, which I didn't realize that was not the thing to do. So I had like Fox Moto pants and a jersey. Like, looking back on it, it was so embarrassing to see the pictures of me dressed like this. But we got humbled hard, and that was the start for us. And from there, we evolved pretty quickly into the SXR 800s. We were packing up the family minivan and going all across the country from Kansas, driving 17, 18 hours to be able to go to races. But one thing that I think really helped me as a rider and also just kind of as a person in general was, a lot of jet skiers get into it and they immediately want to like throw all the horsepower in the world at their jet skis. And my dad was like, nope, you're going to learn how to ride it. I'm not doing anything to it, one piece at a time. And so I spent like my first 2 or 3 seasons just getting smoked by these people that had expensive, spooled up jet skis. We went to the world finals for the first year in Lake Havasu City, Arizona. We packed up mom's minivan with the SXR 800 on the back, and I showed up and I was like, I am gonna win, and I got like third from last. It was devastating. Like I was like, man, like I really thought that I was like hot stuff. So I spent a couple seasons like that where I was riding a stock SXR 800 against modified ones that were quite a bit faster. And it was not fun for me because I wanted to win. I wanted to be competitive, and I felt like I had a huge disadvantage. But the year I won the first national title, we came into the last race of the year, and my dad was like, all right, it's time. And he put carbs on it and a pipe on it, and I just walked out of everyone's lives. And it was so validating to be like, I can handle this horsepower now because he made me figure out how to ride it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I started. I spent several years on the national tour. I was really fortunate that I got to do that with my whole family. My dad worked really hard to help support us, and it was something that my sister and I had to work for too. We were in the garage all night and helping move stuff. Like at the time, I didn't like it because I saw all these other kids that just kind of got to roll in factory style, But I think in the long run, it really helped me out because now that I'm on my own, it's like when stuff happens, like I can figure it out because I had no choice but to do it if I wanted to go to the races with dad. So yeah, I really enjoyed racing the tour. I worked hard, and I had a really wonderful team that helped me do great. And I'm really proud of those accolades. And my proudest achievement is obviously that world title. I won it in 2016 in the expert men's 2-stroke limited class. I was one of the only girls there. There was a lot of really fast, tough guys there that day. And I remember very clearly that in the very last moto, there's a ferry that goes across the lake from Havasu over to the California side. And that ferry leaves the biggest waves I have ever seen in my life. And halfway through that race, that ferry came by, and I saw those waves come in. And I remember when I saw those waves, I was like, it's just another day at the Ozarks. I was on the backstretch hitting those waves, and I just blasted through them. And there were a lot of people that just kind of dropped back when that happened. And that was it. Like that really sealed it for me, was that freaking ferry and those huge waves. So I still see that ferry all the time. And it's like,
I was gonna say, you see it every 30 minutes, I think, back and forth.
Yes. Yeah. So the wild thing about the water is like, you'll hit the big waves on the back stretch, and then by the time you get around to the front stretch, you're hitting them again. So I saw those things coming from a mile away. And I remember that ferry took off at the beginning of the race, and my dad and I were standing on the starting line, and my dad was like, that's it. Go for it. Like, just hit them. It's just like the lake, And so I remember that. I feel like that the confidence that I had to just send it over those ferry waves was like single-handedly what did it for me. And it was kind of an interesting situation because in the first moto, I got like 5th, and I was like, well, we're out. And then in that second moto, we won. And I remember we got into the tech tent. At World Finals, if you place top 3, they tear you down, make sure you're legal. So we're in the tech tent, and we didn't even think we were in the top 3. And the tech director comes over to us, and he's like, all right, get in the tent. And I remember my dad lit up like the 4th of July. He was like, really? And he was like, yeah, you're sitting in first. And man, I thought my dad was going to lose it. He was so excited. He had never been more excited to tear a jet ski down than that moment. So that's honestly one of like the best moments of my life, was winning that, just because I spent a lot of time just getting like wildly underestimated. And I was just always this like skinny kid that like sometimes I was fast, and then other times I was not having a good day. So that moment was super validating, and it kind of paid off. And I gave those trophies to my dad because, man, he built, I don't think to this day that there is a 2-stroke limited as fast as that ski that he made for me. The guy is such a wizard. I'm super fortunate to have grown up around him and learned a lot from him.
Well, I think it's interesting, like the way he started you out, because my dad kind of the same thing. Like when I wanted to start off-road racing, it was like, you've got to wrench on your own stuff. And and he'd help me along the way, but he made me, kind of do it. And he'd check over, make sure things were right. One of the most, the things that I think was most beneficial was he had all these faster race cars sitting in the shop and he wouldn't let me drive them. I had to start out in just the ones that beat you to death. And he's like, if you can learn to drive these, you can drive the faster stuff. And same thing for a couple of years. I had to do my time. And then it was like, all right, it's your time. And then I went out and immediately, got second in my first race, in the faster truck. But it was like, it's one of those where I think there's a lot to that, and I think, like you said, now, like you're on your own and you're able to wrench on your own stuff. It's like at the time you don't realize what your parents are doing, but it's like in retrospect, you look back, and you're like, man, they're a whole hell of a lot smarter than I was.
Oh, absolutely. I was like butting heads with my dad the whole way because as a kid, I was like 15, 16, 17. I was a girl that was dealing with social media and like, trying to impress and get sponsors and all this stuff. So like all I saw at the end of the day was that these other people's skis was faster than mine and I couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And I don't think I fully grasped how technically intelligent my dad was too. He's a master mechanic, like he knows his stuff. But all I knew was that my ski was slower than theirs, and I didn't know why, and I didn't know why my dad wouldn't help me out. So it was honestly really hard for me to kind of get stepped on for 2 or 3 seasons and just kind of deal with that because I was working just as hard, I thought, as everybody else. And so that national championship where he put the pipe on it and the carbs on it, like we have videos where like we take off on the start and I was just gone. Like I was 10 or 15 bolt lengths ahead of everybody else in it. And it was a lot like that for the rest of my two-stroke career. Was my dad was building stuff that was fast. And we also had a great relationship where he always listened to my feedback because I was really tiny. And I had all these guys that would come to me and be like, your setup's weird and that's not right. And you should be running it like this. And I was thankful that my dad always listened to my feedback. And I've always been thankful that we had a communication where I was like, hey, it's handling this way or something's uncomfortable, and being able to understand what the carburetors were doing and how the ski was reacting and things like that. I've always been super fortunate that we had a ski that was always just right for me, no matter what everybody else was telling us. It was like me and my dad just had it sorted. We had it dialed.
Yeah. Well, here's a question in regards to jet ski industry, because I've followed it for years. Obviously, growing up in Parker, I've been around jet skis my entire life. I feel like in the last year or so, like I think just off-road's the same way. There's been parallels where there's like ups and downs and ups and downs. But I feel like right now, I feel like the jet ski industry is kind of seeing a little bit of a resurgence. It's like I just the vintage side, the performance side, I feel like things are starting to come back around now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that a lot of times people that are really heavily entrenched in the jet ski industry look at the 90s and how big the 90s was and feel like we're not at that level anymore. And there's a lot of other sports that are like that. Like the 90s was just a different time.
Yeah.
But now, I've been in the sport for about 10 years now, and when I started, it was so small. It was so small. So seeing it now, especially on the West Coast here, I was racing in Kansas and we would have, maybe if we were lucky, like 20, 30 racers at a regional. I come out here and it's like they have like 100, almost 200 racers at every race. They have lines of like 20 or 30 racers at a time. And to me, that's huge, since I've started in the sport. And I do feel like sometimes the folks on the West Coast, they're kind of used to seeing those numbers all the time. But I've been really fortunate I've raced all over the country in the 10 years that I've been racing. And I've raced a little bit here and there. And I think that generally overall in the last couple of years, I've raced West Coast, I've raced Midwest, I've raced Texas. It looks like it's all growing to me. Kawasaki introducing the SXR 1500 made it a lot easier for people to just go to their dealer and buy a jet ski, do a couple small things to it and take it racing. And that's really kind of helped insert a whole new group of people into the sport. Vintage class is popping still. It's one of the most popular classes because you can find a 440 or a 550 on Craigslist. And if you want to, you can show up and race it as is. But if you want to win, you can do some stuff to it and be more competitive. So I've loved seeing it grow and seeing more people, seeing people, from the off-road industry get into it. And even just the rec riders in general. I think recreational riding is like at an all-time high because I worked at Pro Watercraft for about 2 years. And when I was there, it was mind blowing how many people called in with stock 650s and stock 750s, and they wanted parts. So I think that there's a huge market of people even outside of racing, that are just trying to get out on the water and have a good time. Like if it's too hot to ride the dirt bike, what are you gonna do? You're gonna go ride the water scoot.
Yeah. No, well, I've started joining like I've done a lot of stand-up stuff in the last year, but I've started joining some of the vintage groups because I bought here, what was it? Beginning of last summer, bought a super chicken, and that's
Oh
what I've been
boy.
going through. It's actually my buddy Bobby's going through the engine right now, putting a coffin pipe and some stuff on it.
Oh,
But
nice.
I've actually started kind of joining some groups and looking at stand-ups, and I'm like, and then you look at the size of the group like 6 months ago versus like today. And I'm like, holy crap, this group jumped by 3,000 people in like 6 months. And I'm like, where are these people coming from? And it's everybody's
Yeah.
like chiming in, oh, I bought this vintage or I bought that. And I'm like, holy crap, this stuff is like, it's kind of getting, I don't want to say out of hand because I think it's a good thing.
Oh no,
But it's,
it's like a wildfire. Like I think the nice thing is that there are so many 440 and 550 jet skis out in the universe just because Kawasaki manufactured so many of them that it makes it really easy for people that are starting to find a jet ski, get it running, and get out there and try it. And most of the time, it the thing about the 440 and the 550 is they're old enough to where you got to work on them like a lot to get them kind of built up and get them running good again. And so I think sometimes it's kind of like a rite of passage of whether or not you're gonna stay in this vintage jet ski group and you're gonna be like a tried and true gearhead, or you're gonna bail on the 440 or 550 and get like a super jet or an SXR 1500. But it's like the gateway. It gets you into it, gets you a feel for it. You get the bug. And just like you, like next thing you know, you got a super chicken and you have all these other jet skis. Like we have like at least like 15 stand-ups right now. And they're like all over the country. Like some of them are at dad's house, some of them are at my house, but it's like we started on 440s and we still have those 440s, but it's like you just get a taste for it and then it's like, well, I need this one for this class and I need this one for this class, and this one's not even going to race, and this one's just a fun build, and this one had a cool paint job. Like it gets out of control, but it's the best kind. It's so good.
yeah. So how did the move to Havasu come into play? Because I know that I mean that was a big move. Like, because you haven't been in Havasu, but what a couple years? It hadn't been super long, right?
Yeah, I've been here for about 3 years. I graduated from college in 2017, and honestly, like a week after I graduated from college, I packed my car up. I drove across the country and stayed at a sponsor's house in Southern California, and I was working the Supercross circuit. I was a media manager for the TPJ Fly Racing team, and I was also shooting photos for some of the other teams. And I was just going to every race that I could until I got another job, and that job was not a good environment for me. I was there for about 2 years, and I was pretty miserable. So I got out of there just for myself. I couldn't really handle being depressed all the time was pretty much what it was. And I like cut ties and ran, and I didn't really have anywhere to go. And Chris Haggis at Pro Watercraft reached out to me and had wanted some help running his parts business. And I was like, man, I don't know. I kind of was on this path of wanting to work in supercross and dirt bikes. And I was like, I'm kind of trying to like go bigger than jet skis, and I was like, man, I don't know if I really want to go back to jet skis. I was still racing and stuff, but I was trying to kind of break out with a career. And I remember calling my dad and being like, man, like it's a nice idea, but there's a lot of people that go to Havasu and then they never leave. and my dad was like, what are you talking about? Go to Havasu, ride your jet ski every freaking day. What are you talking about? And so I did. I packed it all up. I had a jet ski trailer with I actually had a 440 and an RM85 on it, and I pulled it all the way to Havasu, and I haven't left since then. I've really enjoyed it. There's something just really special about this town. Just being able to go down to the beach and just kind of unwind. And it's not even about, cutting buoys and training and doing motos and stuff. For me, it's this nice freedom that I have to be able to enjoy something that's really important to me. I got super into racing for a couple of years, and I was honestly kind of miserable because I let the racing and the results kind of defeat the purpose of just enjoying jet skis, and jet skis really gave me a life and my whole personality. So coming to Havasu has been great because I've gotten back into just enjoying it. Going on cove rides with my friends, floating down the river on the jet ski, just, going as fast as we can into a corner and then turning so we don't die when we hit the back of the cove. So that kind of thing has really been so nice living here. So yeah, I've been in Havasu for about 2 years now, or 3 years. I was with Pro Watercraft for about 2 years and I loved it, just getting to hang out with jet skiers all the time. And now I work for a automotive and power sports PR agency called Con Media. And they're out of LA, and they let me still live here. So it's been a dream, honestly. The last couple of years, my life's really been on the up ever since I moved to Havasu. So I know people are always like, "Yeah, I'm living the dream," but I genuinely feel like I'm there at this point.
Well, and it's funny, like I've had this conversation with some people, and you're mirroring some of the stuff that I've experienced the last couple of years. And fortunately, I live in Parker because the water's there, the dirt's there, like pretty much everything I enjoy, it's right here. Same as Havasu. And it's like I got so invested into racing, and it was like, so driven. And it was like the last year and a half, like I've had some partners that said, just go and have fun and just share what you're doing with the world. And it's been like I've refound myself. Like I've started jet skiing again. I've started riding dirt bikes again. You know what I mean? I've still doing a ton in the UTV stuff, you know what I mean, out in Broncos. But it's like I'm doing it for me now. And it's a different thing when you feel like you're doing it for everybody else. And
Yeah.
it's like it's a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, absolutely. I really stressed over those titles for so many years, and I've been really blessed that all of my partnerships and my sponsorships, at the end of the day, they want to see me succeed, but they're in it for the content that I make and the adventures that I share, and the attitude, and what I bring to the table. And so it's been refreshing, and it's helped me kind of find my center again, is that I can just enjoy it. It doesn't have to be a job. I still race, and man, I still want to get in there and crash into people respectfully and do a good job. but if I don't win, it's not the end of the world. I still get to go to a cool job on Monday. The sponsors aren't going to cut ties when I don't win a regional race. And the other thing is that the people that have been following me have been super supportive of whether I get first or I get last. So it's been really cool. It was something that I let myself get too wound up about the results. And while I always still want to do a good job, you can't let results and wins and plastic trophies take away from the reason why you started, the reason why you're into it. Like I said, jet skiing, before jet skiing, I was super shy. I had no self-confidence. I was a very just sad person. I didn't have a place in the world. And jet skiing really helped me come out of my shell and helped me grow. And I attribute so much of it to where I am now. It really kind of helped catapult me, into my career and into my life. So I don't want to ever hate jet skiing. It's so important to me. So letting something make it toxic for me is not cool.
Well, and I know mentioned so you're doing some dirt bike riding. Also, you're working in the auto industry. I know we were trying to catch up at SEMA. So, I mean, it sounds like you're bouncing around doing a little bit of stuff outside of jet skiing also.
Yeah, people always ask me to post dirt bike videos, and I gotta be honest with you guys, I am not super talented on the dirt bike. It's really ironic because for me, when I'm riding the dirt bike, it feels like the dirt is moving out from underneath me, even though the water is always moving. It's the weirdest thing for me, but I love ripping my little RM85 around. I don't really have a desire to race it or anything like that, but I love motorcycles. I'm too short for most motorcycles, so that puts me at a disadvantage already. But I've loved it. I really enjoyed working at Supercross and befriending a lot of the racers and learning their stories. So I hold all of that really dear. But I'm super stoked for the gig that I have now. Yeah, like you said, I'm working in automotive now. Con Media is a really incredible agency. They're working with some of the biggest, baddest companies, honestly, in the world. So I'm really fortunate. I get to work with Aprilia motorcycles, Quadratech. They make Jeep parts. I love my crappy little 1987 YJ. So I get to work with brands like that and help them connect with people like yourself who are just passionate about all of the different toys that you have and your lifestyles. So it's really been a dream come true to work on stuff like that. It's not an easy job by any means. I am grinding every day and it's very high stakes, but the payoff is really wonderful. To see big things happen for these brands and know that I had a hand in it means a lot to me. And the Con Media team is awesome. There's so many cool people on that team. It's just a big group of gearheads, people like you and me, where, we have cars that we're working on the weekend. every time I go into the office, every couple months, it's like a car show. And I get so excited. Like everybody has a project that they're working on and it's like they've done stuff to it. And every time I come back, I'm like, oh, like what did you do to it? So it's been really cool. It's something like I said, like I felt for so many years like I was paying my dues. Like I was in these tough situations where either because I was a girl or because I was small or because, whatever it was in the boys clubs of motorsports, that I felt like I was just like in the trenches. Like it was tough. And so now to be where I'm at now, I'm like, man, like it was worth it. Like there were times when I was like, is this really worth it? Like, is this really what I want? And now that I am where I am, I'm like, okay, it was worth it. I'm glad I stuck it out. Like this is really cool.
Yeah, I had some people like when I first transitioned out of, kind of my normal 9 to 5, and stuff like that about 12, 13 years ago. Like I was really frustrated. I was like, kind of got angry, stuff like that. People like you trust in the process, trust in the process. Now looking back, I'm like, I wish I knew then what I know now, but I'm like, I'm so glad I went through all those hard times and the rough times because I'm like, it makes you just so much more stoked on life, now that you know what you know, and things are going great.
Yeah, honestly, a big part of my social platform, like a reoccurring theme that a lot of people see is me talking about like, people kind of talking down on me. And I don't know if it's just where I was from, but like I grew up and it was like girls in motorsports, even just like, kind of working on cars, not even racing. Like I was ostracized so terribly, like in school, because I wasn't this like girly girl that wanted to go to prom and stuff like that. And being young and wanting to make friends, it was really really hard on me in middle school and high school. I was depressed. There were times that I thought that just not being alive was going to be better than putting up with the stuff that I was dealing with at school. And being around my dad, and he dealt with something similar when he was younger. Like he's this big guy, and people just kind of like thought he was some dumb redneck, like so he grew up feeling the same way, where teachers were like, you're not going to get anywhere in life. And so that was something that I dealt with, even from people in my own family and stuff. They were like, stop this. This is not ladylike. This is not appropriate. Don't do these things. And I just kept doing it because me and my dad were just having fun, and I was like, you know what, I don't know what else to do, so I'm just going to keep doing it. So that's something that I talk about a lot, because I feel like even it's not even just a girl thing. Like even guys have to deal with that sometimes too. With their family or whatever that is. Just feeling like the odd one out. And I felt like that for a long time. And now I think it's built me up in such a way where it's like I have this confidence now. I'm really proud of where I am. I had to work really hard to get here. So I share that message a lot, and I think a lot of people think it's like some like man hater thing, and like absolutely not. It's about just negative people. Like it doesn't matter who they are or where they came from or what gender they are or whatever. Like everybody deals with people just like stepping on them sometimes. So like I said, and kind of like you said, like there were times where I was like, why am I doing this? Like, is this really going to be worth it? And you never know. And there's kind of risk involved with that, where like you can settle into a 9 to 5 and hope for the best, or you can just grit and bear it, and hope that it turns into something. And it took a really long time. I started working at this and building those trademarks and building this brand when I was 15. And now I'm 26, and I feel like now the dues are starting to pay off. Like I can't wait to see what comes later, but it took a long time. So I honestly I use my platform a lot to try and like reach out to those people, that it's like, just keep grinding. Like something's going to pay off. Don't listen to the people that are trying to tear you down, because if I had to listen to those people, man, I'd be so bummed out on life. Like I have no idea what I would be doing, because jet skiing got me here.
Yeah. Well, and I think, a lot of people talk about the bad things of social media, but I think one of the good things about social media is there's somebody like you who's gone through all this, and now you can share, you have a platform to share your stories, your experiences. And, back when you started, there might have been other girls doing it, but you didn't know that there was other girls doing it. Now there's younger girls who can see what you're doing and go, oh, there are other girls doing it. So it opens the door, you know what I mean, for people. So it's not so lonely, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. When at least in jet skiing, when I started, there were not very many people building brands on social media. I feel like there was a couple, like I know Gomez was kind of doing it, and there were some others, but I feel like I was the first person to just be like on social media all the time in the jet ski community, because that, like I said, I wasn't super fast, so that was my thing. So I was sharing all these adventures at the races and meeting all these legends and taking selfies, like that was my whole thing. And so Nowadays I'm really proud of the fact that, I get nice messages from girls that, tell me that, they think what I'm doing is cool, especially not even on the racing side, but just like the working on my own stuff. Like I've always been super candid with the fact that like a lot of it is just me like asking dumb questions and like trying stuff until it works. I've taken classes in college and stuff on working on motors. Like I've been really blessed to have a dad that's talked me through a lot of it, but there's still a level of just like you got to just figure it out. And it's been really cool having girls come to me and being like I like that you're working on your own stuff. So yeah, absolutely. I like being any kind of light that I can be on social media to share either like an adventure and be like, this could be you could be out having a good time. I'm one of the things I pride myself on is like, I try to be 100% real. Like the person that I am on the internet and the dumb jokes that I make and the goofy things that I do, like my friends will tell you it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
I do the same thing. The only exception is on race day, I get really quiet. And it's because like on race day, I'm like ready to go. And so I have had people come up to me on race day and like catch me and be like, you seem a lot happier on the internet. And I'm like, well, I'm getting ready to go try not to crash into 30 people at once. So catch me in like a couple hours and we can chill. But like on the regular, I really like being real is super important to me because like there's been times where I've met influencers or my heroes or whatever, and you meet them and they're totally not what you expected, and it's like so deflating. So like I try to be exactly like it's exactly as you see it.
Yeah, and I think that's awesome because I've had some of that. I love it when your heroes live up to be, who you want them to be, or who you're expecting them to be. But before we wrap things up, I guess what's next? I know obviously World Finals is this fall, but we got a lot of time between now and then. What's happening with you over the summer?
Honestly, anymore, I don't plan that far ahead because I never know when I'm gonna get a phone call. Like even like this conversation that we're having right now, like I just have people that hit me up, and I never know what I'm gonna be like whisked away to do next. I have a really busy work schedule coming up with a lot of the brands at Con Media, going to events and things like that I'm looking forward to. I had my first race of the weekend or of the year last weekend. Didn't go super great, but it was exactly like the consequences of my own actions, not riding very much over the winter. But I plan to race a lot this year as much as I can. Probably go on a little traveling circus of jet ski racing over the summer where I can. But yeah, World Finals is always it's the big show, so I'm looking forward to it. I'm really thankful I still have so many brands on board with me to make it possible, even though a lot of it is just kind of it's a loose program these days. And honestly, that's the way that I like it. I'm here to have fun and I'll race when I want to race and we'll go cove ride when I want to cove ride. And it's been a real blast.
Well, and I think that's one thing, even talking with Gomez, quite a bit, good friend of mine, but it's like finding any kind of sponsorship or support in jet ski racing, it's because it's such a niche. It's really tough. So, when you can get, partners and sponsors, whether it be product or money or whatever, like it's definitely tough, and I think that's awesome that you've been able to get those and keep them because it's such a niche industry. Like, it's not, there's not a lot of support there to get, and the companies that are there do support, but there's only so much they can give.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting kind of pond that we're fishing from in jet skiing because there aren't a ton of brands. I'm really fortunate. There's been a lot of brands outside of jet skiing that have wanted to partner with me. And in the last couple of years, my brand deals have been better than ever, and I'm really thankful for that. It was a lot of work to get to that point, and honestly, it's a whole business in itself. The amount of work and content and things that I'm doing, it's a side hustle, is what it is. So I'm really thankful for the brands that have worked with me. Ones like HydroTurf and SBT, like they've stepped up in such a way that honestly, I didn't know if the sport even had that anymore, from the heyday. So I've been really fortunate, and it's stuff that I work really hard for. And those brands are rare, and I'm really thankful that because they don't have to give back anymore. Honestly, there's so many jet skiers out there that'll just buy stuff. So there's a lot of brands that are super far removed from the sport, and I'm really thankful to work with the ones that still, have big hearts for the sport.
Yeah. Well, it has been awesome catching up with you. I think we're up against time right now, but man, we definitely need to do it a little more often, and we need to get together for some cove rides at a minimum this summer, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited. Let's do some drag races up and down the river. See how fast your ski is.
Well, I will say, Gomez and I are actually talking about doing a ride, like a dam to dam ride, like one dam to the other and back. So I'll let you know because we want to get like a group of people and kind of film it and do some stuff. So I'll let you know. It'd be kind of fun. Get a group of us to go and do it.
Yeah, that sounds hardcore. I dig it.